We know that Aaron Rodgers just can't help himself, but it seemed like we were coming to the close of the dramatics. He went to Pittsburgh, where dramatics are not normally accepted. We go to a place where the legends before him can kind of hopefully keep his ego in place. We go to the final stop in this journey and the final season of this journey, and it seemed like, beyond a few things here or there, that Aaron Rodgers wanted to just play football in this final season and maybe didn't feel comfortable enough, empowered enough to make a thing out of everything, which he is always usually going to do. And here he is before the season saying, you know what? We might have to run it back in 2026. Bro, maybe nobody wants you to bring it back, run it back in 2026. Can we just get into the season, or do we already have to make it will he, won't he? And this has always been the most exasperating part of Aaron Rodgers to me. There was a point in time that I absolutely loved watching Aaron Rodgers, that his nimbleness in the pocket, his arm strength, his arm angles, his athleticism, his Hail Marys, his off-balance throws were such a sight to behold that it was just glorious. Whether you were rooting for the Packers or not, it was glorious to watch him. And then he allowed the ego of Aaron Rodgers to take over everything, and now you kind of can't separate the two. And I thought maybe, just maybe, you could stuff that ego into a sock for at least temporarily and not make it about Aaron Rodgers. Just at least temporarily until we see whether the aircraft gets off the ground in Pittsburgh. And what did we get before the first game? We might have to run it back in 2026. So already, Rodgers takes an opportunity to create the storyline. Well, is this really the final year? And if this goes well, what do we do next year? And will he come back? And do we want him to come back? And does he have football left in him? And dude, just worry about the next game. Just worry about the next opponent. If you just did that, it'd be so much easier to enjoy your career. But instead, it's always the melodrama. And I find it hysterical. For Tom Brady, while he was with the Buccaneers, was there ever a moment before the season began where he said, we might have to run it back next year? Of course not. Because for Brady, he was maniacally focused on just the immediate. Everything was the immediate. Everything was the immediate all the time in terms of winning football games. His longevity was about him thinking long-term, but he would never say or assume that anything would go well, and thus he would have to, quote, run it back. In fact, in his mind, I'm sure most of it was anxiety that it would not go well, driven by that. I'm not saying that's always necessarily the best thing either, but can we just get into the season? Maybe get to Halloween before you start saying maybe we'll run it back next year? My God.